Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle from WeAreSC.com. It's signing day. And look, guys, I'll be honest with you, there are shows where we don't know what we're going to talk about, and it's hard to fill up an hour with something. This is a day where there's so much to talk about. I'm not sure we're going to get to all of it. We are going to talk a little signing day. We're going to talk USC, UCLA. And we'll see. We'll probably push off a season review until next week. And let's get started, though, with signing day. Maybe a little bit of drama going on right now. Maybe by the time everybody watches this, it'll be all cleared up. But very little, considering you have a class of 35 guys and everybody has been talking for months about how surely USC is not going to hold on to those guys. They're going to be decommitments. It looks like, with the possible exception of Mark Bowman, who I don't think is decommitting, but something's going on with the contract. With the exception of that, everybody shows up. So let's start with this. Let's start with, who are the guys you're most surprised are going to show up? Because, I mean, when you're talking about this many guys over this period of time, you think that you might lose a few, and some of these guys are highly prized. Eric, let's start with you. Who's the guy that USC signed that, frankly, if we're being honest with ourselves, we say, I'm kind of surprised that guy signed?
Jamie Winfield, and it's not close. It's not close for me. That is the guy at the top of my list that I think seriously shows what the new era of USC recruiting and NIL and all of that stuff is about. This is a guy where if you look back at the last, I don't know, 10 classes, maybe however far back you want to go to kind of the Pete Carroll classes, he's not in this class. He's not in this class. He's a top 50 kid, top four interior defensive lineman from Mississippi, now playing in Texas. No real ties to USC. We saw him just jump the rankings every time it came out. Everybody in Texas and the SEC and wherever else wanted this kid. Unbelievable talent. And he's coming to a USC program that just has not pumped out NFL defensive tackles. It has if you go back far enough, but in recent history, no. So the fact that he committed and then you heard nothing from him for months and he's still there, totally solid, in, signed, like that to me is a big statement from USC in this class. A the position, right? B, I know we talk a lot about they got to get California guys, and if you want to say Tom is like the headliner and one of the biggest gets, absolutely. But going into Texas, getting a guy like that can play and probably play early for you. To me, that's a guy where you go back like 3, 4 years and go, by the way, USC is going to sign this guy in the 26 class. No, they're not. No, they're not. And so that for me, he's like a tone setter for this class.
This is an enormous get too, because when you look at Jakeem Stewart and Floyd Picard in the last class, you saw flashes from those guys where you say, yeah, those guys are going to be NFL starters at some point. You add him and Tom. Now you got two other interior guys in this class that you say they're starting to stack up like elite guys inside, and those are the hardest guys to find. US for USC, finding a quarterback isn't going to be that hard. They're going to find quarterbacks. They're going to find receivers. But interior defensive linemen who are future NFL starters, those guys don't grow on trees. At least they don't in Southern California. So yeah, that's a
And
huge.
I and the Jakeem point is good. Like they did get a guy like that, but that felt like this is the one guy we're gonna get, right? Winfield is part of a bunch of guys that they went and got, and it never felt like they had to go, here's the only guy we're getting. It was just like, yeah, we'll get him and we'll get some other guys and we'll add this unbelievable defensive line class that they have.
Yeah. Mark, give me a guy. Who's the guy that you say, yeah, I'm still a little bit surprised we landed that dude?
I'm gonna put on Eric's shirt right now. I'm gonna give you three guys. The fact that
Well, what are Greg and I going to do if you're taking all the guys?
I'm going to leave you an obvious one. Don't worry.
Uh,
So the fact that USC went up against Ohio State, a team that is undefeated right now, playing for the conference championship game, will be going to the playoffs regardless, and is probably the heads-on favorite to win the whole thing. For USC to go into the state of Ohio, take the best running back out of state, the best cornerback out of that state, which are two positions that that program produces on the regular. You would think, all right, you know what? They showed interest in USC in the spring, carried on through the summer, into the fall. Eventually, Ohio State was going to step up to the plate and say, you guys aren't going anywhere. You're staying home. Turns out they said, no, we're going somewhere, and they're coming to USC. I mean, to me, that is kind of astonishing that that relationship was being able to be built. Obviously, NIL played a role, but I think those two guys specifically are more about relationship than NIL. I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about Mark Bowman, what's going on there. The third guy, to a lesser extent, again, you went up against Ohio State and Penn State. The bottom kind of fell out, but Luke Wafel. This is a Pete Carroll type of recruiting cycle. They put a fence around Southern California, and then they went out and they cherry picked those NFL talents, different positions from different states. And this is what a number one recruiting class looks like because they're able to go out and do that.
You know, the two Ohio kids, you're right that it's difficult enough to pull guys out of Ohio. I mean, when they did it with Fred Davis a long time ago, they kind of had to sneak him out. You know, there was that Bond movie back in the 80s where they had to sneak that guy through the pipeline out of Prague or something. It was sort of like that.
Hey, I gotta jump in. USC just announced Mark Bowman. So again, we talked about,
no drama.
that's probably gonna happen. So redo it all. I say it's Mark Bowman. I never talked about Jimmy Winfield. All right, we can go.
Look, both of those Ohio kids are probably going to play early. Hill has unbelievable skills. That guy can fly. I just saw today that he had the fastest timed miles per hour of anybody since they've been doing that with the high school kids.
22 miles per hour.
Yeah, no, he can really move. And Alston has a college senior's body now for running back, right? This is a guy who is very serious about his weightlifting. He is a big, thick kid and very strong. These are both guys who can play early. Greg, anybody else you want to add to the list? I mean, Mark has taken practically everybody on the roster at this point, so I don't know who's left.
I think it's good that he did that. He's just verifying what we all know, and I think it's important. I don't know why.
Well, good job, Mark.
What a churlish comment you would make, Chris. I can't believe it. Mark, I'm all for it. Mark, what are you doing?
Reminding
I will say this. I was happy, surprised that they were able to keep everybody basically in line. I do think that they've figured it out how to deal with it. Yes, it reminds me of Pete Carroll, who used to, when we used to get players from out of California, basically it was to stay quiet until the very end and then make the announcement, which, kind of harkens back to, to those happy days. But, I think what you have to keep in mind here is, I look at Booby Feaster. They kept him, that was somebody that I could have seen happening. But Winfield really was important to me. And what Eric said, there's nothing for me to add. I thought that, he really seemed to get an incredible amount of attention at the end here. And, the thing to always to remind yourself, and I hate to say this because people say, okay, here he goes again. These guys, it will take 2 years probably to figure out as a group. Now, there's going to be some guys in here who are going to play next year. There's no doubt in my mind. It's just going to happen. But you always have to remember, like offensive linemen, like I look at a guy like, Henye Pepe. This is a guy that, could he end up starting at some point in time? I watched video of him. He's ready to go. He's got it all. And I looked at him and I remember some of the players that we haven't been able to get from a couple of years previously that probably would have started, and they ended up playing one for Oregon, a couple others. And I'm going, you know what? This guy is the real deal. And I'm glad, for him and the other headliners that they all came. So, one surprise, okay, I'll go with Winfield, but for the most part, the headliners, and now that Eric said that Bowman's officially in. I don't know what more you could ask for. I mean, they were right on. They got it.
Yeah, and look, 6 times in my life I've been wrong, and I like to admit it every time it happens. We had a debate on this show about Chad Bowden's policy, right? He's going to have a policy where you stick with us or you're gone, and that policy struck me as a very bad idea, especially when it cost us a guy that I really wanted. But it turns out that's only a small part of what he had in mind, right? The bigger part of it is that these guys get incorporated into the program, incorporated into the team very early on. So by the time you get this late in the process, these guys have been to USC over and over and over again. They know each other very well. They know the current players very well. To walk away at this point would almost be like betraying your brothers, right? I mean, so the policy is only a little piece of it. The bigger piece of it is he's building a culture where these guys become a part of something bigger than them. And with a class like this, it's fairly easy to convince these guys that you have a future national championship roster here, because when you have a class this big with this many really good players, they believe that they're going to do something special, and they might. But yeah, Chad Bowden, look, there are a lot of reasons why USC landed this class. One of those is money. We know that. But USC is not the only team that pays a lot of money for their class. You have a coaching staff that did a fantastic job recruiting and that the players trust. USC's had a lot of coaching staffs over the last 10 years that parents and high school coaches and high school players simply did not trust to develop them. USC has a staff now that rightfully, I think, the players think will develop them. And Chad Bowden has done an extraordinary job in his staff at building relationships and keeping this thing together while the coaches are doing the things the coaches have to do during the season. But it's an extraordinary accomplishment to land this class and hold it together. We don't know how good this class is, and we won't for 4 years, right? There are number one classes that don't pan out, and there are number one classes like the one that Reggie Bush was in, where you look at it and you say, holy smokes, why did USC go on that run? Because of that class, right? And you won't know that for a few years. What we do know is that they landed a remarkable assortment of players, because we haven't mentioned a guy like Talanoa Ely yet in this show. We mentioned a bunch of names. We haven't mentioned him. That's the headliner in most of USC's recent recruiting classes, and rightfully so. He's an outstanding player. I mean, he's a guy you could put 55 on and feel very comfortable doing it. And but he didn't come up right away. He didn't come up because there's so many guys in this class. It's really, I mean, we talked about one of the two running backs. We didn't talk about the speed back, probably because he's from the LA area, and so you talk about the Ohio kid first. But I mean, you go down this list on the defensive line and wide receiver. There are just so many position groups where you say this is remarkable. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about this. Give me the first guy who's going to make a huge difference. I think we all assume that one of these freshmen is going to make a really big difference on Saturdays this coming year, probably more than one. Who's the first guy? Who's the first guy who is going to establish himself as a legitimate future star and big-time contributor come September? Greg, let's start with you.
Well, I tell you, there's just so many that I look at it, and you have to think about.
Just do what Mark does and name them all, and then you can't possibly be.
Well, you know what, Mark has always been a mentor for me, and I thought that he's going to cover all the bases. So I'm just kind of just throwing out a dart out here, but it's what they need. I think what I would like to see them get is I think Winfield's obvious to me. He's going to be right there. But I think Luke Wayfield, I think he's an important part of that edge, the rush, the physicalness, uh, the type of player that we're used to at USC when USC is really good, that they've got somebody on the edge. All through the decades, they've had players that are just absolutely tremendous. And, a lot has been said about him. And I think that he's going to be in a position that he could really stand out. It's how fast he can get to the quarterback. But other than that, I'll tell you what, the other one I would look at myself is Pepe, the offensive lineman. I really think, because we don't know about Page and whether he's, going to come back. I assume he's going to come back. I might be wrong. But, there's an open spot for them. And like I said, I watched the video of him. And, it takes a lot for me to be impressed with video. And I'd much rather see him in person on the field. I didn't get a chance to do that because obviously he's in Florida. But he's definitely someone that I could sit there and say he could find his way into that lineup at some point.
Yeah, I agree with both picks. I mean, you're right. There's so many guys. The interesting thing is you pick two guys in the trenches, which ordinarily those aren't the guys you expect to contribute on day one. But you're right. I could see both of those guys playing a lot on day one. Mark, who do you got?
So, unlike Chris, I'm only wrong 5 times a year, and I was all aboard.
I didn't say 5 times. I didn't say 6 times a year. I said 6 times. But go ahead.
Anyways, I give myself 5 times a year, but I was all aboard Chad Bone's policy. And it goes back to a little bit to what you were alluding to. It's not just the brotherhood, the camaraderie. You're starting to install that discipline. All right. Hey, you're with us. Stick with us. Show me you can do it. And this is what you get. The number one class. But to what we're talking about right now, you look at a position where a true freshman can actually step in and contribute and not have the moment be too big for them. I'm going back to Albert Hill, cornerback. I think he has the ability, especially because there's going to be playing time at that position this year, that he comes in the spring, starts to establish himself. Man, it might be a young tandem, but maybe R.J. Sermons, Marcellus Williams, Albert Hill, who knows? I mean, it's going to be young, but it's going to be damn talented.
Yeah, you're right. With Hill and Sermons, you've gone back-to-back years with guys who have elite skills, right? And we'll see how quickly they develop. But you're talking about guys who athletically are at the very top end of the chart. So that's pretty exciting. Look, it would be great to have shutdown corners at some point, right? I mean, it helps the defense when you can just stick your corners out there and not worry about it. Eric, who do you have? Who's going to be the first guy to really step forward as a star?
I mean, I'd love to pick through the class and find some sneaky guy, and it's Mark Bowman. Mark Bowman's coming in to play day one, like maybe the first reception of the season, day one. Walker Lyons came in after a 2-year mission and no spring ball and barely any summer stuff, and played in 11 games and got like 200 snaps as a true freshman. With Lake McCree gone, Mark Bowman is coming into play, and he will play. I mean, it's you look at who comes back, who's going to catch passes for USC next year, and you've got, everyone just talks about like foregone conclusion that Mackay and Jacoby are going to, it feels safe at this point. So Tanu Kynes comes back. You've got a couple guys in Prince Strawn and Zacharias Williams who've caught passes at other places, but not really at USC. And then you've got Walker Lyons at tight end. They can do a lot with Mark Bowman. I mean, he can play in the slot for you. He can go out wide. He can play inline. Like, he can do a lot of stuff, and you don't bring that guy in. You don't win that recruiting battle. You don't do all that stuff to not have him ready to go, and you're not really forcing him, right? It's not a Tackett Curtis where it's like, can he play? I don't know, but we told him he could, so we got to keep putting him out there. Mark Bowman can play, and again, that he will play early.
There's the big reveal. Eric knew the contract was being held up to make sure that Bowman got the first pass play of 2026.
Yeah.
That's in his NIL deal. He gets the first pass. That's fine. I'm good with that. Um, yeah, Bowman was mine too. He. A lot of these guys are extraordinary talents. I don't know that anybody is like Bowman, where people who follow recruiting carefully will tell you this is the best guy in years, right? I mean, Kenya Pepe is a stud tackle prospect, but there are guys like him every year, very, very high end guys every year. But there are guys like him every year. He's a guy who will probably play early. He'll probably be 3 years into the NFL. So I'm not denigrating him. I'm just saying that those guys come along. Mark Bowman's don't come along very often, and you're talking about a position where the mismatches you can create, the problems you can create for a defense are innumerable. And so we saw this year that USC, for the first time in a long time, really took the tight end seriously as a weapon. That's going to jump up. That's going to go to 11 next year. I mean, because Lyons is a good player and will get better, and Mark Bowman is special. So he's my guy too, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do with him. He's a guy who you can put as a line up as a tight end. You can spread him out wide. You can put him at H-back. You can probably do whatever you want with him. He's going to get downfield. He's going to catch the ball.
He'll throw the Mekhi Lemon passes next year, right? All the attempts you had for him.
I mean, we need to run that at least once every game in the rain, but I don't know if, it's probably not going to rain in September in LA. Okay.
You know what? I was going to say the thing that since you were on Bowman, he can really block. I mean, he can really block, and he's a guy that looks like he's going to pancake people because he gets through the line and he has to go to a linebacker. He gets there and he does not get off. He is really a physical player that you don't see often. Well, we used to those, the old SC tight ends would really block when they had good teams, and he falls right in line with them.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, and of course the late flip from Caden Dixon-Wyatt, one of the modern day, I guess this year, Big Four. There are a lot of receivers in this class that I think can play and possibly play early. He's one of them. Obviously, Booby Feaster is an elite prospect, and despite the fact that those guys are both really good, I don't know that either one of them is the best receiver in this class because despite the fact that his rating is not as high, if you were following the CIF playoffs recently, you saw what USC's new slot receiver can do. An extraordinary talent. In fact, Eric, I'll let you talk about the kid, but special.
Trent Mosley from Santa Margarita, Santa Margarita, the Carson Palmer led Santa Margarita that blitzed everybody to the championship this year. And in the most important game, what do you need somebody to do? How about like 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, right? I mean, it's that kind of performance in a big game, and the speed, the toughness, when USC has a slot guy sort of jump out, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown and Mekhi Lemon, like those are the two that he's going to get compared to. And there's always but those guys have done it, right? It's like when people start comparing some guy like, oh, he's equal mixes of like these two Hall of Famers. And it's like, well, he's taken 0 snaps. But with Mekhi, it was the same sort of thing. Like, hey, this guy clearly is going to be good because he loves football and he's going to give you everything he has at all times. And you get that sense with Trent Mosley as just a guy that guy's going to make a play for you. He's going to make a play whenever you target him. And are you getting Mekhi Lemon as a junior when he shows up as a freshman? No, but he's not a guy who's going to take a long time to get there and contribute. Honestly, what's interesting for me is that, I mean, Mosley clearly with what he did is great. I think Luke Weaver gets a little bit buried in this class. I think that guy can play. He is
Yep.
big, he is physical, he can go, like, he can stretch the field, he can go through contact. I think he is good. I think he is a good receiver, not getting talked about a lot. And that's what happens when you have one, two, three, four, 14 receivers in a class. You start to lose track of guys. But no, you know, it's how all recruiting works. Are you going to hit on every single guy at a position like this when you bring in this many? No, but you got enough. However it shakes out, you got enough guys in this class that are going to make an impact for you.
We've talked 4 receivers. We haven't talked Roderick DeZeno from Louisiana. And you know what? He's a 3-star. He's not as highly ranked as some of these other guys. They don't go and pull that guy out of Louisiana in the class that already has a bunch of receivers unless they think he can play. I like his tape. And I'll tell you what I really like about this class is you have a lot of football players. In fact, you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to talk about him anyway because I love this guy's film. But if you talk about sort of the under the radar guys in this class, you got this guy Taylor Johnson from San Bernardino. Taylor Johnson is a tackle machine. And you look at his stats, and this guy's putting up 13, 14, 15 tackles just about every week. USC's had a bunch of linebackers in the last few years where you go out and find a guy who was sort of a jack of all trades, a rover, a safety. He's a good athlete. He's big enough that you can put him a linebacker, and then you hope that the transition works. I don't know that it's worked all that well for any of them. It worked particularly poorly for our friend from Louisiana who's now gone. This is the opposite of that. When you pick up Taylor Johnson, you are going and picking up a guy who is just a football player. He's not huge. He probably needs to add weight. But you watch his film. This is a guy who plays downhill. He fills the hole. He reads the play and reads it quickly. I think Taylor Johnson is going to be a 2 or 3 year starter at USC. I really think that. Because there are some guys who you can just tell they're football players. And this is a guy, I mean, he's a 3-star now. I think last year at this, when USC first got a commitment from him, I think he was a 0-star. I think literally he was rated the same I was in high school. Like nobody had heard of him. Nobody wanted him. That guy's a football player. I'm excited to watch him. And that's a position where USC needs to get better. I don't know that he's a guy who can play day one at his size, but he's a guy who's going to play a lot, I think. Let's stick with the theme then. Give me some other under the radar guys in this class, people that everybody may not be talking about, but you think will probably turn out to be really good football players. Mark, you got somebody in mind?
Yeah, I'm going to throw a name out there that maybe people won't consider, but offensive lineman from San Diego, Chase Denise. Dude, he's got the size. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling he's one of those under the radar guys that all of a sudden you're going to go, oh, look, Tobias Raymond. We got another one of those type of guys. He fits that mold. So I know Kenai Pepe gets all the headlines. Cannon Smith is another guy from Colorado, again, on the offensive line. I think Zach Hansen, Lincoln Riley, they really evaluated the offensive line, the guys in the trenches really well in this class. We know what they did on the defensive side of the ball. I think the offensive side is not getting as much love as it probably deserves.
And we haven't mentioned the guy who I think may be the first guy to start of all these offensive line recruits, right? I mean, Brett Colliget is a guy. He's a mammoth kid. He's an interior guy. Plays with a mean streak. I mean, I don't know whether he'll start before Pepe does. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest to see him playing on Saturdays, getting some time next year. That guy is a mountain of a man who plays with attitude. Really good offensive line class. I mean, really good. Maybe better on the offensive line class than the defensive line class, and that's saying a lot because the defensive line group is fantastic.
I don't know if I'm going that far. I like a lot of those offensive linemen. I will take the defensive line class in this one.
Yeah.
this offensive line class could be better than the one that's actually starting for USC right now. I mean, we know how many different lineups they trotted out there this year. Those are all the guys they recruited, save for Jay Reed. So
And we still have Vlad the Impaler out there, who's a big kid and an athlete. I mean, I don't know. This is a pretty fantastic class, but you're right. The defensive line class is pretty extraordinary. And all right, so Eric, who do you have? Who's your under the radar guy that you think nobody's talking about will be a star?
The linemen were the guys that I was going to. I think Cannon Smith. There's times where, boy, I think that guy's going to be unbelievable, and you swing and miss at some of those, and that happens. Cannon Smith, I'm going to throw out there too as another guy where it's just like I don't see how he's bad. Like I don't like the floor for him feels so high that it just feels like solid football player no matter what, right? I mean, there's always injuries and that sort of stuff, and if he's going to make the move to center, like that is a critical position in Lincoln Riley's offense. You've heard about them, we've seen guys. It's not working out. We gotta move them away, right? So that becomes a sort of mental battle, and can you get there? And he'll need a little bit of time, but he's a guy that, again, first look at film and it's like, oh, okay, this guy seems fine. And I'll say that about all the linemen. Like every one of these linemen is a block you into the parking lot kind of guy as a lineman, and it feels like clearly something that they were looking for in kind of the attitude and that sort of stuff up there. The other guy, if I have to go deep, and I think this is a bigger reach, and you're a little bit more like boom or bust here. Andrew Williams, the defensive end from LA, like he's a guy that I'm very interested to see at this level. Again, not a ton of football background, played both ways, tight end, defensive end. He's got that athleticism, and USC is just desperate for an edge rusher who can be a difference maker, not a guy who can, take up a block here and there and this sort of thing, but like really bend and separate and use his hands and like be a problem for someone. And so if you're taking a shot on a guy, there's a lot of measurables and athletic ability that you like in him. And so again, it's not is he going to get 5 sacks next year? No. But he's a guy that I'm really interested to see how he develops and where he goes.
We talked about this with the wide receivers, how many wide receivers we mentioned before we get to guys who could legitimately be multi-year starters and very good players. We've talked about all these offensive linemen. We haven't talked about Esun Tafa, the interior lineman from Utah. That's a big, powerful kid. He's a guy who, in most of the recruiting classes over the last 10 years, would be like the key offensive line recruit. And in this class, he's one of a ton of guys. I mean, so pretty exciting with all that. You have, what's the best way to say this? Quarterback recruiting these days is weird, okay? You line up a quarterback, and the guy that you're going to play 3 years from now is probably not that guy. I mean, that's just the way it works because quarterbacks bounce around. It is the easiest position for somebody to come in and slot in for a year and play well. And you see it, and you've seen it with Oregon, you've seen it with Notre Dame. USC obviously brought in 2 of their last 3 starters, the guys that came in from the portal. So I don't know if Jonas Williams will ever start at USC. I don't know that. He's a pretty exciting prospect. He's not a huge kid, and I don't know that he has the biggest arm, but he's a guy who moves pretty well, seems to be pretty accurate with his throws, and is probably a really good fit for a Lincoln Riley offense. What do you guys think of Jonas? I mean,
if you're so my take on it, right? If you're looking for a Caleb Williams clone in the top 10, number 118 overall range, right? Not 1-1. Like if you're not looking for a quarterback 1-1, He's got it a little bit there. I mean, it looks pretty similar, like his ability in the pocket, especially, but also out and ability to run, the ability to throw on the move. Like you're not gonna be Caleb, but there's flashes of it where you say this looks like quarterbacks that Lincoln Riley has had a lot of success with. And right, good kid, smart kid, understood it. You heard all that from Elite 11 stuff. Like coaches really liked him there. Uh, I I like it. Again, you're right. Quarterback recruiting is weird, right? Like it's not, oh yeah, we'll tuck this guy for 2, 3 years and then we'll see how it goes. But you have to because not every quarterback is, yeah, you're going to play as a true freshman. So I think that you figure out like who matches up sort of mentally, emotionally, physically with what we want. And he feels like a really good match for the USC offense, for Lincoln Riley, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, he doesn't have Caleb Williams' arm strength, but in fairness, almost nobody has Caleb Williams' arm strength. But you're right in terms of his ability to move around and make plays on the run. He's not. I'm losing my mind. Lincoln Riley's other starter at Oklahoma that's now a starter in the NFL and can run like the wind. He does
a ton of them. Kyler Murray.
Yeah, Kyler Murray. Yeah, he doesn't have Kyler Murray's foot speed either, right? He doesn't have. I don't think he has any of the elite skills that some of these other guys have. What he seems to have is he seems to be a smart kid who's accurate and can move around really well. And when it comes to quarterbacks, we've had our complaints and our criticisms of Lincoln Riley on this show over the last few years. Some of those still exist. I do not doubt Lincoln Riley when it comes to quarterbacks. I just don't. And this last year proves that it's foolish to do so because we sat here and said, I don't know. I don't know about Jaden Maiava. And the truth is Jaden Maiava made gigantic strides this year. And if he comes back, and hopefully he will, he's going to make gigantic strides again next year too. Lincoln Riley understands quarterback play. He can pick his guys and he can develop them. So we'll see. I don't know how quickly he'll play, but Jaden Maiava has a decision to make, and I suppose it's fair to say that Houston Longstreet has a decision to make too, because quarterbacks have a decision to make every single year as to whether they're going to stick around or jump somewhere where they can play right away. And so I don't know if he'll ever play, but he seems like a really high level prospect to me. Pretty exciting kid. Guys, what have we missed when it comes to this recruiting class? What have we not talked about?
Position group or player?
Either one. Just whatever you want to say, Greg. Greg, I hate it when you don't get to say all the stuff you want to say.
I'm sure that's not how the other people listening feel that way, but
no, nobody else thinks that. But that's
all right. I'm actually intrigued by Josiah Jefferson, the acclaimed JUCO transfer out of Chula Vista area, and just looking at him and seeing some of the things that he does, he could be one of those players. SC, it worked well that they had two tight ends this past year, and I think Lincoln Riley did a great job of dealing with it. And if you consider that, Bowman is going to be playing right away, which isn't exactly brain surgery to figure that out. But Jefferson could get in there, and you never know with injuries. And I think that he's the type of guy that I would, if I could watch practice, he's the guy that I would want to watch and see how he does. Because I think, he was well known. SC doesn't always take JC players now. But the fact that he's coming, he must have had something in mind with Lincoln Riley to say, you're going to be involved.
Well, when you add him to Bowman and Lyons, who's already there, don't be surprised if USC trots out a lot of 3 tight end sets next year. I mean, you saw some of that this year where they're double tight and they have an H-back. So that wouldn't surprise me. I like that pick. What else, guys? How about Jake Johnson? Who wants to talk about Jake Johnson? This is a 3-star kid. He's from Texas, so a lot of USC fans probably haven't seen him in person. this is a really productive guy, especially as a pass rusher, playing at a very high level of high school football. He's not playing against scrubs in that league that he's in.
The defensive line is it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, Jake Johnson's a former offensive lineman who flipped over, and you can see a little bit of that and in the way he plays. A he's just a guy that you add, right? When you can add depth like this and you see how it goes, right? Cass Jacobson, I think, is sort of the same type of thing. Like, let's keep this guy in the program. Let's see what he looks like in 2, 3 years, and probably going to end up being a player. I think he's talented. But so we've defensive line, we talked Luke Wafel, which you have to. You talked Jamie Winfield, which you have to. We haven't really talked Tom Tom yet, which is like if you want to go all out brawl on who was the must get guy that shows that you're real about recruiting right now and recruiting in the area and building the trenches. Like, he's, if not the first name, the second name that you have to talk about. Just an unbelievable pickup. And another guy who just physically developed. And I mean, looks like he's 35 with just the way he walks around and like the build he already has. Like, he's going to show up ready to play. You got Mote Katuwanga, right, from Rancho Sacra Maria, who from Santa Margarita too, with coming in from Mosley, and not a guy that's fully polished yet, but again, like the build and the attitude and all of that, he's got some positional versatility. I think can play on the edge and the inside. Braden Jones, right, would be a guy that, like, oh my gosh, they went out to Chicago and got a kid that Notre Dame wanted, and like, he's sixth on the list of guys you're talking about in the class. Like, it's the defensive end, it's the defensive line. Again, there's some 5-star guys out there. There's some big time guys that USC, looked at and recruited, and they ended up at other places. But the way you have to build now, where we need to invest in guys that can play early. And then we also need to find some guys that aren't going to bail, like that are going to be okay being here 2 years, being here 3 years before they really start to see the field. And you look at like almost every group and every group where you need depth, right? Where you need a bunch of guys. And for the first time in a while, and we saw it a little bit last, like Lincoln's been better at it since the 22 class where they took nobody because they wanted to open the portal. But that's sort of what you see in all of these groups, the defensive back group, the offensive line group, the defensive line group, the wide receivers. Like, that's where it is you see guys that, yeah, I think that guy can play right away. I think there's 2 or 3 guys in every group that could play right away if things break well. And then you've got 3 guys where it's like, I want to see that guy 3 years in the program, right? Strength and conditioning program. And I want to see what he looks like then.
Yeah, we barely talked about the defensive back class. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I was just saying that, Chris, because we're on the same page right now. There's 2 names we have not mentioned yet, and they're probably the guys who have been committed the longest. They're from Southern California. Brandon Lockhart, Madden Reardon. You want guys who literally live and breathe and bleed being not just, part of the team. They grew up USC fans. They want nothing more than to show that, you know what? We're from Southern California. We're the answer. We're the solution. We're going to get USC back to where they need to be. Brandon Lockhart said it. He tweeted it out, after his signature. I kept receipts. Everyone didn't think we were going to be able to keep this class together. Well, guess what? Here we are. We're ready to go. I don't know if you're going to be able to keep a player, despite his size, like Madden Reardon off the field. If you throw the ball within his zip code, he is going to go take the ball. He is just that type of ball player. And again, Brandon Lockhart, dude just grew up wanting to be a Trojan forever. That's something that you can't teach. When you have that kind of passion, that kind of desire, that starts to permeate throughout the locker room, and that's the culture part of the whole thing.
Yeah, there are guys who are measurables guys, and you say, this guy, he's this tall, he's this heavy, he's this fast, and then there are guys like Madden Reardon who you just watch the productivity. And you think, yeah, no, of course I want that guy. I don't care that he weighs $112. It doesn't matter. That guy is going to find the football and make a play. And he does it over and over and over again every week. So I'm with you. I think that's a guy who's going to play and play a lot for SC.
That's a thematic thing too. The thematic thing too, right? Los Angeles, California. the local stuff. That they talked about that from the beginning. Chad Bowden's like I think the first thing he said, right? We're gonna show California that we want to be here, right? That we want the best in California. We want all that. Now, what's gonna be interesting is if you look at like the actual California top prospects, it's not like USC just absolutely ran down the top 10. Like there's been years past where you've got, 7 of the top 10 in the state, things like that. There were some how do you put it? High dollar guys in California in this one, and you're just I don't think in California especially, probably Texas too, that one school now is just going to be able to get 6 of the top 10 guys in California. Like the schools can just pick and choose. We're going to go all in on that one guy, and we have enough to be able to do that. So, but when you look down the list, like they crushed like 12 to 17, 12 to 20. Like they got all those guys in California, and that's big. And having Mark mentioned Brandon Lockhart, Matty Reardon, like those guys, Tron Baker, we can talk about the wide receiver who committed, like he's technically the second guy in this class because Julian Lewis, I think, was the first before that he reclassified and all that stuff. But like they've had guys stay for a while, and that's another thing Chad Bowden talked about was we build culture early. We go get these guys and we get them in the program. One of the things I thought was really interesting this year was it's the first year that I've ever seen USC do it, and I don't see teams do it on the road either. Before games, Chad Bowden would go and pull recruits off the side. I mean, the sideline's just packed with recruits, and it's commits and it's recruits and it's the parent guest and all that sort of stuff. Would pull the committed guys out, and they'd stand at midfield while the team was warming up, and it always just felt like separating them and bringing them in, like you're part of the team, right? You're part of the team. The team's on the field, so you're on the field, and we're bringing you out here. And I just can't imagine that doesn't resonate with those guys when they come out there. And it just, that family feel that they were able to build. It's going in with 34, going into signing day with 34 commits and coming out with 35. And like, I know the Bowman thing was, what's going on, but never really being worried about, oh my gosh, there's a battle here. We got to figure this out. Like that guy is probably going to flip. I mean, everybody had a guy that, oh, he's going to flip. We don't really know about him. It's just a phenomenal job from them in having a plan, right? This is how we're going to do it. We're going to go out. We're going to get all these guys early. We're going to lock down this guy, this guy, this guy. They're going to be our leaders. And to have it work out like this is, I mean, it's really impressive. It's a really, really impressive statement that they did. And it's different than talking about, are you winning games, right? That's not today. Like they're not winning games today. This is the recruiting class, and the way they've built it locally through the trenches with some of the skill guys, it's impressive.
Locally, but with 14 out-of-state guys, and some of those out-of-state guys are guys that you just shouldn't be able to pull out of the places you got them. I mean, look, here, the truth is that you can win on signing day and still not be successful. We know that. It's also true that if you want to figure out who's going to be good in 3 or 4 years, go look at the top 5 of the recruiting rankings, and you're probably going to see the same teams. That's just the way it is, because the best thing you can have is better players on the other side. Schemes are great and play callers are great and all that stuff. If you have better players than the other team, you're going to win most of the time. Even Clay Helton would win most of his games when his players were better than the other side. It's once he lost all those recruits that were given to him that he couldn't win any games. He went to the Rose Bowl because he had a bunch of good players on his roster. So the most important thing you can do is have good players in your roster. USC's roster. Look, some of these guys are young. I don't know how much they'll play this year, but if you look at the talent level of the roster next year, it will be the most talented roster they've had in a long time. And I suspect they're going to load up on another recruiting class next year as well. In fact, I think those recruits are going to start committing now also. And so you're in a position where you can have a lot of concerns, but if you have great football players, you're going to be very tough to beat. And USC is stacking up some really great football players. It's what you need to do.
I think, Chris, you make a really good point. You know, as great as this class was, and it was great, and it's number one right now. And remember, we have another recruiting one coming up in January, right? February. You know, who they have and what they're going to do and who's going to go in the portal and who's not going to go in the portal. But I think that next year's recruiting class is probably very, very sharp at seeing who actually did sign. And next year's recruiting class could really, at least from a talent standpoint, put USC right up there at the very close to the top upper echelon when it comes to talent on a roster. And I think they've made some real headway with that. And there's nothing like, you know, the evidence that they did sign. This class is no longer, are they, who's going to back out? It's there. So the recruits that are looking at it for next year's recruiting class can say, boy, I want to be a part of that group. And of course, UCLA, they've got a new coach. You know, they're going to have new, quote, enthusiasm. And that's always been a situation with SC and UCLA. But I can't think of a better position for SC to be in with UCLA getting a new coach, no matter how he handles it, than to be in the position that they're in now, because success breeds success. In fact, I will tell you this, the pressure is going to be on the coaching staff at SC to make sure they don't get overly aggressive to play guys who may not really be ready to play. And for Lincoln Riley to sit there and just say, okay, we gotta play this out the right way. We can't be forcing guys in that maybe really aren't ready to go. And to me, it'll be interesting. That's why I know it's not going to happen, but I would hope that Coach Riley would have a second thoughts, at least for spring ball, that we could go in and see the new players and see how they practice and how they go. Probably not going to happen, but
I don't think we can trust you at practices, Greg. So I don't think that's going to happen.
About this,
Go ahead.
You filled this class with players from winning programs. And I'm talking about winning programs, elite programs. I saw someone tweeted it out earlier. In this cycle alone, USC is bringing in 8 players from the Trinity League. 8, just in this cycle alone. In the previous 4 classes combined, 5.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a staggering number.
Well, look, I think we can wrap this part of it up with this. This is the best signing class in many years. It's a remarkable accomplishment for Lincoln Riley, his staff, for Chad Bowden, his staff, for Jen Cohen, who really turned around the NIL situation at USC, because that's obviously an important part of it. And we'll do a full season. Next week, I think we'll do a full season review, but more of a this is what we've seen, this is where we're going sort of show. So we'll talk more about it next week. But if you look at where the program is right now versus where it was a year ago, 2 years ago, it's hard not to notice that there's a whole lot of good stuff there, right? I mean, a lot of good stuff. And so is USC where we want them to be today? No, not yet. But progress is being made. And we'll talk next week about some of the areas that they need to shore up before September. Okay, guys. We played UCLA last week, and we haven't even gotten to it because, signing day is always a lot of fun, and because UCLA's – I don't know how much I want to get into this, because I think next week one of the things we're going to have to talk about is whether USC will ever play 4 quarters again. But that was a weird game. I mean, you have a first half against UCLA that is just about as ugly as you're ever going to see, right? Special teams, offense, defense, just gross. Just gross. The whole thing was ugly. I just wanted to turn my TV off. And then you come out in the second half, and as USC has done numerous times this year, they decide to start playing football, and they easily dispose of the Bruins in the second half. Why did it have to go that way? I don't know. It shouldn't, but it did. Anything we need to talk about regarding the UCLA Bruins and last week's game? Somebody must have something they want to say.
I think the thing that to take into consideration, SC's recruiting this year is going to have a big, big plus on how the team turns when they play UCLA. A lot of the players that SC has come from other places. They're not used to the importance of the rivalry of SC UCLA, and some don't even have the importance of SC Notre Dame, although they're familiar with it because it gets a lot of national attention at times. But I think that you almost have to take special effort to make sure the players on your team know the importance of certain games. And I understand, I mean, in my opinion, I was disgusted at what USC was doing in the first half. I'm with you, Chris. I'm not the type that can turn the TV off and say, screw them out. I've seen enough of this because I have to see the whole thing. I guess I'm a glutton for punishment.
Me too. I just get angry and yell.
Well, I usually watch the game when I'm not at the Coliseum. I like to watch it by myself most of the time because I can just kind of analyze it and look at it and kind of figure it out. But I thought that, when I started looking at who the players are and where they come from, and I'm going, do they really know what SC and UCLA meant? I know that in the good old days when UCLA was, really competitive, the players all knew SC UCLA. I don't think this group in many ways understood the intensity of SC and UCLA. I think the players coming in, this group of recruits, will understand it because there are a lot of California kids, and they will introduce the players from out of state how important it is.
You make a good point. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Here's what I don't understand. We're talking about USC having a slow start. They got the ball. They went on offense first. They put together a really nice offensive drive and with a touchdown. How does the offense, a Lincoln Riley team, shut their own offense down for the next 20 minutes of the first half? I mean, I don't think there's anybody in this country who say, you know what, UCLA will be winning at halftime 10-7. There's nobody out there. It makes, for the life, that's why it's so frustrating to people like myself and to Greg and to you, Chris, and even to Eric, who's more local.
Even to Eric.
I'm never
Even
frustrated.
to Eric. You had to throw him in there, didn't you?
Actually, I text with Eric a lot during the games, and I can tell you that he is frustrated. He's just better at hiding it.
It makes no sense. It really doesn't. So I don't know if that's the coach is not having the team prepared, or to Greg's point, the players they don't really get it. The last thing I want to see is Willie McGinnis having more fire, more passion than every single one of those players coming out of the tunnel. I don't get it. And that's why I'm so uber critical of this program, because they talk about it all the time. The standard is the standard. Well, freaking reach that standard. Play 60 minutes of football, win or lose. Give me 60 minutes of football. That's all I want.
Mark, I'm going to tell you, it's the players that you recruit. And when you're recruiting players, just not from a physical standpoint, but how are their character, their personality, how they talk about things. One of the questions I would ask if I was recruiting, tell me what you think of SC versus UCLA. What's the first thing what comes to mind when I tell you that? Because I want to know what that player is going to think. If they come out really intense, like, okay, I know this, man, then that's a good sign. But if I get a player who goes, oh, I know they're rivals, then I sit there, and when you're having to look at players, you don't want to learn the SC-UCLA rivalry when you lose it. Then it's too late. But I think that Lincoln Riley Lincoln Riley's not from our area at all. He's grew up in a small town in Texas. There's no way to expect that he's really going to understand SC-UCLA. It's, you talk about Oklahoma versus Texas, okay? You could understand that, but, those are two different states. This rivalry is so intense because it doesn't go away. it plays one. I mean, people that don't even follow football will be rooting for SC or UCLA, one way or the other. And I think at this point in time, Lincoln Riley, I think, does understand the importance of it. I hope he understands the importance of SC and Notre Dame. That's another one that you got to say that is important. It's important from a national perspective. It's important from a local perspective. And if you don't think that you can beat Notre Dame, then you shouldn't be the goddamn USC football coach. I am sorry, because there's too many people that have invested decades in it. It doesn't make any difference if you're my age or Mark's age or Chris or Eric's. Look, it goes beyond decades. It is a major part of college football. I know Notre Dame will do everything they can to try to make it happen, but SC cannot sit there and say, well, it could really affect our playoff situation. You know what? If you're good enough, you can beat Notre Dame. I've seen it a million times, and when they're good enough, they can beat us a million times. But that's no reason to sit there and say, well, we won't play them because it just doesn't work out this year. Bull cheese. You know what? You play Notre Dame because that is the expectation that SC does not back down to other teams. Pete Carroll went out of his way to make sure that SC played really tough schools when he could get a chance at doing it. And you know what? It sends a message to your players as well. And don't think the players don't sit there and get the attitude of the coaching staff when they see it. So,
Well, look, we've been beating the drum for USC Notre Dame on this show for some time. We're just going to have to wait and see how it all plays out. When it comes to USC UCLA, there is something about having Southern California kids at USC. They understand what USC means. There's some pride in the local team. You have to supplement by guys outside of Southern California, obviously. I'll say this, though. USC UCLA is not what it used to be. It's not. When in the 80s, when I was in junior high school, USC UCLA was a bigger deal than it is now. It was always sold out. It was always a game that really captured the attention of Southern California. I don't know that it does anymore. And so part of that may be that USC has a lot of guys from outside Southern California. But I think with USC fans, I was going to say with UCLA fans, although I don't think there are any anymore. It's just I don't know that it's the same anymore. That kind of bums me out because that was a really special game for a long time. By the way, ever since that 8-game streak, it's USC 20 wins, UCLA 7. So take that, Bruins. Eric, let's.
Hold on. For me, I'm not as down on all that stuff. Like there was some chippiness between those two teams. I mean, UCLA was coming on the field, USC was getting their faces. Like there was some back and forth in that one. I also think the first half. I mean, it is 13-10 better. No, but USC had three full drives, and they're a bad block on a field goal and just a miss away from scoring on all three of them in the first half. But then, should the defense give up two long scoring drives to UCLA in the first half? It's just it was the DNA of this team. It took them a while, whatever the case, right? Who was that guy, John Henderson, that had that guy just absolutely slap him in the face 3 or 4 times before he'd go out and play a defensive tackle on the Jaguars? Did they need that? I don't know what they needed to just get going earlier, but it was them. It was them. And then it was them to show up in the second half and for most games play really well over those final 30 minutes. It was just another example. This is who they are, and that's how they went to 9 wins this year.
Look, as banged up as this team is, and you have to take that into consideration, especially the offensive line. That was UCLA and one of the more crappier UCLA teams you're going to see in a long time. And I'm talking just on the defensive side of the ball. Forget offensively. I thought they, offensively, Jerry Neuheisel, Nico Iamaleava, Quasi Gilmer, they have enough that they can, do a little bit of this and that to give you some issues. But UCLA's defense to literally just dominate USC's offense, That's what's so frustrating. That should never happen with a 3-9 UCLA team. And I get it's a rivalry. That's a really bad team.
Yeah. Ordinarily, I'd cut the team some slack. I'd say you had that really tough loss at Oregon that takes you out of playoff contention. Having a hangover early in the game is not surprising. That's ordinarily how I'd look at it. It's just I see him do it every week, so I know that's not it. What the problem is, I think, especially defensively, because that's oftentimes where the problem has come up is defensively, and especially the defensive front seven. I think there are leadership problems on that defensive front seven. I think if you have a Junior Seau on that defensive front seven, you do not have guys walk out and get pushed around for the first 30 minutes. You just don't. And I think one of the things they're going to have to develop, and maybe they have the guys, maybe it's a Jakeem Stewart, maybe it's maybe it's a Floyd Picard, I don't know. But you're going to have guys who simply do not allow the defensive front to do that week after week after week. And that's is that on the coaches? Yes. It's also on the players. The defensive front simply didn't play hard enough in the first half most weeks. They just didn't. And the same guys. It wasn't that there were brilliant tactical changes made, right? It wasn't schematic stuff most of the time. It's that the same guys who are getting pushed back 4, 5, 6 yards in the first half aren't in the second half. That's desire and it's effort, and it's not okay to play like that. It's not. And frankly, if I'm Lincoln Riley or Danton Lynn, and I have some of my older guys doing that, I get them out of there and I find a leader who will show up and play hard. That's all I want from those guys. I want them to play hard. And they do. In the second half, they played hard. Against Iowa, in the second half, they played hard. Against Northwestern, in the second half, they play hard. It's just not okay. It's not okay to sleepwalk through the first half and let yourself get pushed around every week. It's just not okay.
But I will say this. At the end of the half, the first half, there was words or something was going on because SC and UCLA looked like they were going to have it out before they walked up the tunnel. And I saw that. And you know what? That told me that probably meant more for SC to get riled up about it than just to go up the tunnel and go, okay, we'll just get back in the second half. But there was some real intensity before both those teams actually made it up the ramp. And I'm sure that had, in my opinion, something to do with their change of, quote, attitude when they came out in the second half, because we saw the difference between the first and second half.
Well, no, UCLA was leading there, and they wanted to get up the tunnel first. That's what started that little minor skirmish where it's like, no, home team always goes up the tunnel first. UCLA was trying to beat them to the punch. I want to give Lincoln Riley a bunch of credit for the way he handled the Makai Lemon, Jacoby Lane situation. We don't know what the violation was of the team policy, but the fact that he was willing to sit his two most productive offensive players for the entire first quarter, that's a strong message. Everybody on this program is equal, and all those recruits that were in attendance, they got the message as well. Guess what? I don't care if you're NIL or if you're a walk-on, you're going to be treated the same way.
Yeah, look, if we're gonna bang on the USC team for a lack of discipline in a lot of areas, and we have been, then yeah, I think you need to give credit where the coach is trying to instill some. Okay, guys, we've gone way too long this week. That's all we're going to talk about. Next week, we're going to do, let's call it a where USC is now show. So it'll be some about what we've seen, but more about where we're going. So we'll talk about various position groups, and we'll talk about maybe some transfer portal needs, the things they need to shore up in order to take that next step. We've seen improvement over the last couple of years on and off the field. We'll talk next week about what we expect next year, and maybe more importantly, where they need to step up in order to continue the progress.
And let's not forget the bowl opponent. We're going to know who they're.
We'll know the bowl opponent, and we'll probably talk a little bit about it, but we may save that bowl preview for a week after that. Who knows? Guys, we have so much to talk about now. So much. we're going to miss this in 4 months where we have nothing to talk about, and we're on here trying to make stuff up.
We got an undefeated basketball team. We can always talk about that.
Well, that's true. That's true. With a road win last night against the Duckies. Okay, guys, that's enough. We've gone too long. Thanks for joining us this week. Join us next week. We're going to have more fun. Until then, fight on, everybody.